지금 그 라마 문제지. 저 라마. 아 컨스타리나. 지 라마들 이제 총총 지자기다 라마들 이제 침벌 소소 그 답도 최종 사람들 간다지 소소 그 답. 나 가르쳐 시키대. 라마지. 근데 라마도 땐차때 티를 타를 마치 결혼증. 담보 라마스견이나 담보님 통과를. 기억도 라마스견에 근데 깔래 가봐. 상기 시작했다 봐라 시견이야. 상기 시작할 때 봐가 상기 견에다 마란츠견이. 마란츠 연된 통특이야면 시견 마당 통특이야. 연된 통계야를. 그리인데 대마란츠 통내나 자우자 제한 라마틴 살릴 때 나 카운터가 제가지 근데 이 나라도 건조성나 협상 잘성될 건조성을 심진 담제가 떠나 그래 상길 심진 담자 담다 두께다 가바tom에서는 저런 도다를 촉살 들어가게 다 뭔가 상길이다 근데 이 손부터 배치되는 말원서 심진 담제가 떠나려는 총지리다 전부용제가 뒤쳤단 말이야. 일단 주제가 생전그. 근데 생전그 돌아요. 공부하면 다 섬들 게된 탐몽바지 따로 탑섬들은 공부하면 공부지 따는 주본 자주시 동몽바지 송여 받았다. 그래. 대마자 성기고 숨바바자 당 삼아야 된다. 되는 때던자 그 성기고 들바스. 디바 그 생전 디바 때던 디바 그치. 하나로서 당선 걔는 지견에는 디박 그 doctor 디박 그 man 근데 또다 영도가 어떤 놈이 생긴 것도 아주 doctor 다 man도 좋다 그래서 총총을 다 마음을 탐진 쳔바 말이야 근데 doctor question 말이다 탐진 쳔바 말 탐진 쳔바 마인 잘 생전 탐진 아래 가버 얘나 그런 거 저쪽인 거 나 이제 그 상기 탐진 쳔바래 뒤르바라 섬김에 쳔바래 탐진 쳔바에 탑등 시라바 섬김에 쳔바래 섬김에 다 된데 죄야 너 나랑 뭔가지 님 따라야 그랬어 소소소소 그냥네 감토가 소소라 감토바데 냐네 야포 나포 야 직대 야냥 취디시 직설렌 영마유 영직들의 마유 그런 맞지 소소한데 근데 출라 템바인데 자 고송특된 종계라다 대다 그 맞지로지 단가랑서 상계 종단의 상계 가르쳐 교육을 맞아 상계 건조성 당가서 어여포용 말은 가서 공천을 두그래다 그때는 고도 십자가에 상계 고송특된 취수세대를 코스 나라의 코스를 취마시나 취부터는 코스 배가 자고 담을 먹어요. 얘나 무슨 특징 전기 때 장니가 저런 집중가야 말이다 마음에 맞죠. 근데 당선 나라는 출라 때는 라마인 제든 코스 배가 지고 자고요. 출라 때는 코스 배가 자기 자다. 소소 만성을 뉴스사세래 근데 그런 탁탁 제라지 나는 가시 말한테 당선다 추종자님 딱 근데 즉 총각의 야름하려다 강방이어지다 라마다 어정고 거지다 듣고 거멘트 고거탄야기 체든 뭐서 소개하려다 또 출라 맞대나 약발해 진짜 초밥집다 페리기 초밥다 민 뭐뭐 하러 그래서 나마다 출했던 거가 말. 이 말씀을 주셨어요. 이 저런지 추적적이 되는데 조개 내세금에 마음받는 세금을 마음받는 경험자. 그래서 상담. 근데 딱 하는 짓들이 시장으로 상인들아 겸슨 저처럼 겸견나 겸슨 저처럼 겸으로 친송되대. 겸으로도 오바데 상기들 람통바본 듯이 잡게 하래서 그거래. 남통바바 얘기때 남들 가르쳐 랑간에 되는 친구들 약간 그래서 다니는 탐정 They Lantam Garida. Maranchande Lantam Garida, Gandhi Tomre, make it Naranchanda, Panga, then think to tell a big day. Combat Menkana, combat Lapa Menkana, Lapa, Tamshi, the Napa, make up a day. Namla Junan, Sangi, the Namle, thousands of them to be shooting. You're married, I cannot have gotten my children, so that's Sangi with number of children that was Zapata, Gyatrul cannot have come home to somebody. Gyatrul to come home, so the same to come home, Zapata, not to come home to say, what is it? Gyatrul, Zapata, something to get up. 옛날에 가르치는 다른 형님들 당신 김바 인자 때에 마음과 인자 이 람데야 상주는 저같은 동자가 노출 영화에 소속이 약간 지난 소속은 노출 지난 수도 줄을 때는 단단한 무게 와서는 하늘에서 그 잡치는 단단해 근데 마음과 저는 겹스 본조스나 겹스 손차는데 니마르리 남바인테나 남바르리 니마르리 남바 마인테는 줄 잔다지 인텐다고 자가 디 가는 막 boyfriend girlfriend 제가 잡고 있는 거 제가 만든 상상의 결혼제 트레일러 페이퍼 나오니까 그 지된 말 일단 내가 영어로 동아시는 근데 남바가 딱 유자를 쓰이던 그래서 남바 따르서 출기용 답안 말에 추가해서 간다. 직배 변치고 당민 corruption 그래서 그 다들 있는 걸로 통장이 있는 그 나가게 되는 따라다는 따바를 따른 잠을 가서까지 길에도 넘어 2500 넘어 단다 인터넷 어야 저 송바바데 미달에 담진 김발에서 거야 직감하게 전례 반찬을 직감하게 certain 영답바 그래 어디까지 다음에 가서 되는 송배 취해달라 좀 넣어줘요 내가 나랑서 견제다 소설도 잠재 소설도 시켜야 맞다 나만 시켜야 말해 나만에게는 jam이 콘트랙트 짜내 땅을 맞다가 다니와 당신 다음에 가서 가는 여대는 같은 그 땅이 뭔가 기업 넘버 기업 타일랜드 가서 가는 내가 특히 말에는 어떻게 당신 잠들이 이렇게 되는 거 소리 주로 말하고 콘트랙트 되는 거를 봐 I don't know 무슨 정말 정말 개는 다시 그 말에는 맞지 나야 즉 아이 상대적인 바람에 대중적인 자기 하려 애들이 마음만이 결혼 전진데 아이는 그런 아이는 와르티나 바꾸 배셔와 와르티는 저는 그러니까 아는 와르티는
아는 wallet 배시상이
배시상이 네 장년들에도 배시 바꾸 와르티 통과했어요 근데 그 사인은 사인이나 근데 그 실절 같은 뭔가에 받아서 혼자 사인 실절 같은 쭉 오메고 탐제들 다 lep차라는 밥 되니까 내 스타트 잠들이 때문에 차이 막다데 인지가 같이 시기가 많아 가게서 이제 아니 저는 스노치니까 같이 시험을 했더니 말하면서 zupo 같은 데는 무슨 zupo 차단 받은 그러니까 연간에 있는 거예요. 딱가와서 남시를 들렸어. 남시에 양좀 많이 들어왔는데 남시는 뭐가 소스다 대화가 어디 가니 세제를 말해. 각을 남기가 뭐야 돼. 땡땡 범죄다니 즉다와 전지 심하서. 지금 빠질 시는데 즉다와 심하. 와도 혼나래. 저는 Jay Shinka, Yanda, Young Kids, Robachi, and the on that Chinese party, Jarred, you must have. Chinese party number the pendant something. Quarant, Malafan, number, nothing in the Chinese made a download contract here, and now get by the pendant, Chinese party and the Chinese party, Chinese Saint Zanda light. 나는 나라제 차를 받고 바로서 내까지 나라제 총중에 내까지 참나디 감정적 지금 라마가 됐으면 지어져야 뭐 파고 선거리는 때가 많이 받아 라마 야문제 소소 잡으려마다 나이었는다 게탈라마 있는다 잡으려마 있는다 어때 많이 나라 라마 메나 성기 걸어 성기 걸어서 라마 때리 하서 연대도 그냥 나나 내가 저 성기 그래서 잡서서 산이야라 진짜 양이로 최라야 진짜 옛날라 진짜 그래나다 나무 부다에 나무 담에 있잖아요. 버동산 야차베 전에 나무산 야차베 상급사 야차베 아니 아이들이 이제냐 아이들이 jam이 가는 집들 진짜로 저한테 같은 어떤데 한따라 소소 깨르부터 접수송나 파산남도 소소 가용 의자마요 jam도 야고 차 야탄마도 나다 송탄마도 나다 정면도 나다 차치고 나다 야고 이는 나랑 jam도 넌 다들 치 jam도 있나 나 나게 jam도 라마 예담 칸도 이나다 상례 jam도 그거 뭔고 주구이나다 때까지 그거 짜 뭐야 되니 ini sama 영상에 너무 뭐랑 좀 들렸으면 좋는다. 뭐랑 좀 들렸으면 좋는다. 막 저런 거를 스톰바 말해. 강의해. 영 강바다다. 손은 제가 강의다. 발소되니까 강의지. 너 강의지. 근데 좀 많이 연결되나 뭐랑 지금 뭐라 지금 상대 지금 들어 뭐랑 좀 들렸으면 좋는다. He display. 이는 뭐라는 되게 진짜나 답아야 뭐 진짜 감다자 가는데 가르라고 이러나요. 청와도 맛있는 답은 맞한테 받쳤다. 시간대로 상대 이치를 가지기는 너무 뜻지다. 나도 남들 마다 위시와시지들 내가 위시와시는 봐서 손체는 그 도반으로 Put my name sometimes. You may be glad to do it. Silence.
막 쉬우시려. 이네 라망나 이거래서 뭐로? 라망나. 됐습니다. Notice. Okay. So, come back to the theme of the Lama. First of all, the root Lama, the primary spiritual mentor, is the one from whom one receives the Wang Lung Ti, the empowerment, oral transmission, and oral instruction or commentary. So any Lama from whom you receive these three, that is one of your primary Lamas. In addition, there may be many Lamas, and the degree of blessing that you receive from them is, as I've said before, is really primarily contingent or dependent upon your faith. So try to maintain that as firmly, as unwaveringly as possible, and not fall back into this kind of teeter-totter syndrome that I've spoken about before. If you're going to check out faults, well, check out faults before you establish that relationship with the Lama, but not after you've established the Guru-disciple or Lama-disciple relationship. Then really maintain the pure vision. It's very easy to see faults in anyone, and nowadays, just generally for Lamas, throughout the world, it's very easy to find faults. But then this is true even if we were to meet Buddha Shakyamuni. We'd very easily see faults in the Buddha. It would be very hard for us to see his qualities, not because of the nature of the Buddha, but of course just our own impure vision. So especially once we have established a relationship with a Lama, one or more Lamas, it's important to be very careful in our relationship, very conscientious in our relationship with that person or persons. As far as the three taking refuge is concerned, the enlightened ones, the Buddhas, have achieved their state of realization for the sake of all sentient beings, accumulating merit for 3 countless eons. And all of this was really out of compassion, in order to be of greatest service to the world of sentient beings. It wasn't so that they could, what their motivation was not tarnished or contaminated by the 8 mundane concerns. They didn't do it for wealth, for fame, but really out of altruism. And they have offered these teachings to all types of sentient beings of superior, medium, and inferior faculties, and have displayed, have revealed this vast range of teachings of the 84,000 collections of the Dharma teachings. And it's not only the Buddha himself, not only this one historical figure, but ever since then there have been the great Dhyatun, the great treasure revealers, who have revealed teachings, revealed Dharma that is appropriate to the times in which they've lived. And so this is Dupap, so it's appropriate to the time. And this is like in medical traditions, where different types of medicines and doctors will concoct or create different types of medicine as time goes by to be most appropriate, most suitable, most effective for the types of illnesses that are prevalent at the time of the generations of the doctors. But medicine itself is actually dealing with quite a small issues. This is not a fault of doctors, like they're doing something trivial, but medicine, just healing the body, is doing something rather small, quite limited. Whereas the medicine of the Buddha, that is the Dharma, is something vast. Just receiving medicine doesn't lead to omniscience. Whereas receiving the medicine of Dharma, following the Dharma, this is coming from omniscience. It's to lead us to the state of omniscient enlightenment. So since the time of the Buddha, there have been countless tulkus, or Nimanakayas, emanation bodies of the Buddha. They've given us this vast range of teachings from the sutras and the Vajrayana. And so it's up to us to then practice whatever we can, do our best, and to also preserve whatever teachings we receive, try to keep them very purely, and not be fickle, not vacillate, or kind of here again, then gone again, here again, gone again, but maintain a very steady, a steadfast type of engagement with the Dharma. In the meantime, it's very important not to be selling these representations of the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha. Don't turn it into a Bodhi business. But recognize the Buddha is our refuge. He's not our servant. We don't sell the Buddha. We don't sell manifestations of the Buddha. So he's not just here to provide us with making a living. If we have that attitude towards the Buddha, in a way we're even worse than Chinese communists. So if we venture into Dharma just to make money out of it, then this in fact is just leading to lower rebirth. And one wants to be especially careful when one has an institution that has a Dharma name to it. It keeps really an impeccable reputation, that one doesn't deceive anyone, doesn't deceive the government, and thinking that it's all okay because it's for the sake of Dharma. One must maintain very high standards. Now, when I make these comments, it's not to scold anybody for anything that's going on right now, but this is just advice for the future, that we want to maintain this kind of impeccable quality in our relationship with the Dharma, with the Dharma centers, our relationship with the 3 refuges. So in terms of those 3 refuges, first of all, we regard the Buddha as the revealer of the path, Nam Dumbapo. Revealer of the path. He's not a little bit, maybe one might think this is a little bit like the kind of policeman, like a traffic controller, like those in India who are saying, stop, go, or go this way, go that way. But it's something far vaster than that, because we are the ones who are blind. We're like wandering around in samsara, blind, crippled, like with no legs, even having no hands. And so then the Buddhas come to lead us out of this morass, out of this darkness of suffering that we experience. So whether or not you like it, you can like it or lump it, but really among the various world religions, there's really nothing to compare with the depth and the breadth of Buddhism. You don't have to like that statement, but there it is. In terms of sheer breadth and depth, Buddhism is really unmatched. And one can say, well, why is that? Why do you make that claim? Because it came from an omniscient one. The source is inconceivable. And therefore the path of Dharma that the Buddha has revealed, and these later great beings have revealed, is inconceivable. And it's flawless. There's really no fault, there's no flaw, there's no defect in these teachings. The teachings that are transmitted may be contaminated, and this is something very terrible if we actually, contaminate the teachings ourselves, but if we do contaminate them, find flaw in them, it's not because it doesn't stem from the Buddha. It's not in the nature of the Buddha's Dharma. It's something that's been added, that we've added to it. So in our engagement with Dharma, it's very important not to be fickle, to vacillate and kind of waver from one tradition to another and testing out another one, as if we're kind of just dating one boyfriend or girl after another, just kind of trying them out and then dropping and finding somebody else. Or even worse, kind of using this toilet paper, just use it and throw it out again. And so when people do that, when people take this fickle attitude or contaminate it or treat it disparagingly or misrepresent it, then Buddhism gets a bad name. I mean, the name is still Buddha Dharma, that remains, but then it gets corrupted by the kind of the ways people louse it up or add their own contaminations to it. And then people say, well, what is this Buddhism? It doesn't sound very good to me. And that's because of the contamination, pollutions that people have added to it. So this Buddha Dharma has been preserved for 2,500 years. And it's maintained its integrity by the great upholders of the Dharma, maintaining pure ethics, very pure ethics, and transmitting the Dharma without error. And so, despite all the efforts of the Chinese communists to destroy Buddhism in Tibet and elsewhere, for all of their efforts regarding this as their great enemy, still they weren't able to destroy it. For all the efforts they gave, none of the communist regimes were able to destroy Buddhism. And now more than ever, Buddhism has become a worldwide phenomenon. It's growing in respect throughout the world. More and more people are accepting the depth and the authenticity of the Buddhist teachings. Even some communists, former communists, are recognizing that Buddhism has great merit, great value to it. And so worldwide, it's becoming more and more accepted. Maybe not among Muslims, but. And some people may just have qualms about it, that is, not totally accepting it, but at least they don't simply reject it flat out. They look at it with some skepticism. But nevertheless, they look at it, they take it seriously. This is true also for a growing number of Western scientists. This guy, Alan Empty Wallet, he's been engaging in this type of interaction with Buddhism and science. And there's much the Western scientists have learned about. Their interest has been focused outwardly, out in the world of matter, external phenomena. And so they've probed into the nature of elementary particles, they've looked into the origin of the universe, and they also have looked very carefully at the nature of the human body, the organs, the flesh, the bones, and so forth. And so there is a great deal they do know. There's much they understand about particles, origin of the universe, and so forth. So they've learned much. But now they're getting around to the nature of consciousness. What is the source of it? What are the origins of consciousness? What's its nature? What are the potentials of consciousness? Now they've confronted something they really don't know. And so in terms of the two types of knowledge, Nyingma and Jitawa, science has made great strides, great progress in terms of the Nyingma, which means extensivity, this breadth. Scientific knowledge has become very broad. It's delved into many facets of reality. So that's one of its great strengths. But Jitawa is knowing reality as it is, that is, knowing the depths of reality, its true nature. And that science, in that regard, science is weak. It has a lot to learn. So looking at the limitations of science, and many of the kind of mistaken views, kind of philosophical views or dogmatic views within science, one may be tempted to just simply discard it altogether and say, well, what do they know? It's just foolishness, it's delusion. But this would be an error, just to throw out science altogether. In the engagement between Buddhism and science may actually help Buddhism in some respects. Now one can say, well, what help do we need? Buddhism has been around 2,500 years without science. It's been doing very well without science. True enough, this is certainly true. Nevertheless, there may be some benefit for the Buddhist tradition from science, and it is certainly true that Buddhism can be of benefit to the scientists, scientific community, scientific understanding, and by so doing, there can be much benefit for the world of sentient beings at large. So in the midst of all of this, each of us has our own work to do, so we should be focusing on that. And we come back to refuge. And so we take refuge in our own root Llama, whoever that may be, whether it's our Llama here, whether it's some other Llama, or if you have no Llama, if you've not really made that kind of connection with any Llama, you can still take refuge in the Buddha. That's the highest, the unsurpassed Llama of all Lamas. The Buddha Shakyamuni is the unsurpassed of all Lamas. And we take refuge in the Dharma. We take refuge in the Sangha. And how we express that refuge will differ from one language to another. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Nama Damaya, and so forth. You may do it that way. Or Namo Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. You may do it in Pali. And how you recite it in Chinese, I don't know. But you have certainly your liturgy for taking refuge. I won't even try. And then in English, take refuge, I take refuge in the Buddha, and so forth. So whatever your language is, you can recite the liturgy of taking refuge in your own appropriate language. And if you do that with this true sense of altruism, with genuine faith, and really do this with altruism for the sake of all sentient beings, then if you recite that 100 times, or 1,000 times, or even just one time, if it's done with that type of motivation, then it's good, definitely beneficial. There are different levels of taking refuge. You may take it outwardly in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. You may take it inwardly in the Llama, the Yidam, the Ngöndro, the Dakini. You may take the secret refuge in the Tsa, Lung, Tikle, the channels, the prana, and the bindus, the vital essences relating to Nimanakaya, Sambhogakaya, Dhammakaya. Or you may take, that's a secret refuge, or you may take the very secret refuge, and that would be taking refuge in the empty essential nature, the radiant, luminous, manifest nature, and the all-pervasive, compassionate nature of the Buddha. And so if one, whatever type of refuge one takes, if one does so with faith, and one really follows with the mind and with the heart what is coming out one's mouth as one is expressing the liturgy or the verses of refuge, then this is very beneficial. And if one holds this, holds one's faith, maintains this, and also just has this sense, soon I shall die, soon I shall die, has that sense, that ongoing vivid awareness, that recollection of impermanence and death, then this leads to definite progress in one's spiritual practice. That's Sintiti Kenza. Tani Michelle. Ota, Tama Chisums. Jesh. CWW to FWW. Anybody want to decipher that?
That's good.
Not a clue. Too long.
That's good. He's watching you.
Yeah. Maybe what's the code? That one is a little bit too cryptic for me. Sani Mishida. Remember the last thing he said? Remember the last thing he said? I just skipped like 30 seconds. The very last. Kunshila Shas.
Forget it. You don't ask That's the one to eat.
Yeah. That? She loved it because they are net. The last house. After now, much. Not patchy. Yes, us.
I'm giving the science to probably a possibility to dance and love some more.
No.
Hey, I did science to be a plan. I have science to no problem. Keep checking. He got this. Choose a new thing. And then so that career. That was a comeback in the treasure would come and non jits out of it. But you lost my damn yes, such a sarcoid and treasure. I lost under the chip out of there. Science magic, the positive water. There is some of them in the stage by stage. Tama, Pila, Yantine, Raja, birds in the Kale, some of them. The Bachambana, the birds in the Kale, Kalisman, that's a cheddar than the day. Get a bunch of gifts to Tasha Chaku, and get a woman, Cardilate, Samaya. Sajalan untuk barat ini, Nyingma barat sana, mungkin ada jadi perkara number one chapter. Sama, jangan tu Chinese, cerita tu sama betul. Jadi pakai malam, macam macam. Jin dan Nyingma barat, kerja pasal kita baca jism ada. Jin baca ser, Jin baca Nyingma barat, orang doktor tahu barat, Nyingma barat, pernah bercakap lama, Nyingma barat.
你叫我干嘛被录着是吧？
지금 맞지. 때리야 하는데 이 가봐봐게. 마음 좀 비빠라. 이제 뭐지? 그러나 이제 깔래. 안 쯤 맞지는 거 우리가 그랬어. 네. 결혼제. 결혼제 시거나 진예바 시거나 결혼주 단다 프로젝트 문제요. 진예바 시거나 단다 프로젝트. 와, 적당 신진의 결혼주 단다 교회바 산바지 공바지 탐바지 적당하지 빨리 가버려다. 적당하게 상 예선인데 적당 상계게 맞아. 진예바의 결혼주 그다음에 다른 거 적당하시 그게 상계서 말해. 다르게 답아 니자다 건담된 바다 건섭된 바 건섭된 바 도산이 진예바든 즉 건섭된 건담된 바는 결혼서 상계서. 이렇게 뭔가 lap지가 거니가 저번에 한 레벨 가요. 세라 메티카. 이 시간을 우리들 남자 주신 거. Peace. Sorry, that's it. Bubble talk.
그런 세르메르. 세르메르.
맞지. 뭐좀 세르메르.
세르메르.
야바도 세르치르.
아.
저랑 말해 썼어래.
몰랐어.
저랑 가니까 세르치 말해 세르메르 말해. गर्दन शर्चे चौथे निकल हमारे बेपोन हमारे बेपोन के बहुत सारे हमारे गोवंग हमारे क्या होता
알아 탕사 알아 탕사 그래야지.这싫어.
알아야 말아 알아라는 어찌래 알아야 말아 아니 받았어 동네 받는 게 근데 사이언스가 지수를 보고 말했잖아. 저거 표정은 지요. 진짜. 근데 저는 저 다리 라마제가 라마들 내가 가리자 라마사. 라마는 뭐 그러 라마들 라는 빠졌다. 상기도 좀 최대 라는 빠졌다. 너나 근데 방 드기 잡아야 된다. 라마. 그래서 다디는 내 가르도 dorta는 practice member. Jadi kita lama, naktan itu sambil mencoba cuma, lama, ada, itu dah, kirim saja, zoran, kirim, kirim, dortan kirim ke hari dia semua, tawa dia yang tawa tu topor wah, tawa, just tawa, topor itu, tu dia hari dia. tawa kita tak nyam juga, tak pada nyaman ini kan. Begitu, alus mebangat, begitu mebangat. Kita cak, makan ini alus deeper. Oh, saya sekarang yang out of the question deh. Jangan sedih dan di lama tu cakap. Coba belajar kita bicara apa. Jadi, Cina pun tu lap kemana? Si tong dah cakap. Coba juga ini, come on. Ini ya. Coba juga saya mengajar untuk konsep macam taruh coba jauh sih kemana yang kalau dia katok kemana berada. Yang jangan cincin jaga ini kesan rasa. Katok kemana? Tarik, ini lari, ini kan sih pada ini. Sana dia kita legat, ini pada saja di mana tombol saja. Ini bongkos komputer, ini surat. Biasa, mesti nak tahu. 참가도 쉬고 그러니까 그보다 좀 그러니까 참마디 씹으면 좀 나도 씹고 야 삼계 약 빠지면서 그래서 정보 좀 씹어야 돼. 저는 야 롱거려 박센탕 거려 그야 롱거가 두번 최소 자기 야 너자들 직전에 지와다니 자기 아니 난 정말
I've been saying that it is worthwhile to have this engagement between Buddhism and science. But some of you may get all excited at that and think, oh, that sounds good. I think I'll go back to school, go back to university or whatever and study science. Not so fast there. You're already sitting inside a treasure. You've already been exposed to the Buddha Dharma. And so it's like a treasure in your own home. And so to kind of turn your back on that and then go outside looking for other kinds of knowledge when you've not even really appreciated or drawn the full benefit from the treasure at home is foolishness. So this type of engagement with science is all very well, but stage by stage, learn your Dharma well. Learn it from the ground up, from the Sravakayana, from the vehicle of the listeners, the basic teachings, the Pratyeka Buddhayana, the Mahayana, right on through. Study it gradually, learn it well. And then gradually, as you really get this appreciation, then if you want to debate, look into the fine points, then you can follow the Kulupas, who are such good debaters. But they're not the only ones. They're not the only ones. The Kagyupas also do. Sakyapas are also very, very good in this. Nyingmapas also, not too shoddy. And so all of these engage in this type of debate. And the so-called the two ornaments and the six perfected one, Genyi Choktu, or these great pundits in India, they don't belong to the Gelugpa tradition. They all are preceding Tibetan Buddhism altogether. So they're revered and they're studied by all of the traditions of Tibetan Buddhism. And Je Tsongkhapa himself, for example, the very first Lama that he had encountered with was a Nyingma. Eventually it was Kamapa. He studied with great teachers of all the traditions. But we're going off on a tangent here. But we don't want to get caught up too much in the kind of the breadth or the extensivity of knowledge, the jinyapa, this whole range of kind of broad knowledge, but rather focus in on the treasure. Focus in on the treasure. That's difficult enough to fathom. You do this by means of hearing, thinking, and meditation. That's difficult enough, so really focus there. You gain realization, you gain Buddhahood by coming to know reality as it is, where there's all kinds of things that can be learned about reality in terms of the breadth and diversity of the range of knowledge. But you achieve enlightenment if and only if, between the two truths, ultimate truth and relative truth, you thoroughly fathom ultimate truth. So maybe some of that stuff we can leave. And then in terms of lamas, there are many lamas. There are many lamas offering many teachings, and so we have a great bounty of practices to delve into. These include, of course, the Sutrayana, but also this vast wealth of practices within Vajrayana, stage of generation, stage of completion, union of stage of generation and completion. But for the Vajrayana to be thoroughly efficacious, to really work, have its full effectiveness, then we must realize the view, the middle way view. And that comes again to understanding reality as it is. Sometimes translated that as ontological realization, understanding the very nature of reality itself, and not just the different facets or different kinds of truths. And then from that basis, really gaining insight into emptiness, the ultimate nature of reality, then you can venture into Vajrayana, and it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. As for that type of depth of knowledge, science is out of the question. It just doesn't tap into that kind of depth at all. So, if you'd like to engage in debate, then you have some fine lamas over to my left. You can debate with them. They seem very, very quiet. But if you draw them out in debate, then you'll see some of this wisdom that comes out. But of course, you don't know how to debate, so you're a little bit stuck. And if you want to be practicing debate, then you have to learn that too. And that goes right from the very beginning. It's called Katokama, which is learning basic debating technique, learning what is called set theory, and applying that to the practice of debate and basic logic. And then in the terms of the sequence of training, then you go from there to Tarik, knowledge of logic, reasoning, onto that from Lorik, Buddhist psychology, from there into Namdel, Samananda Pramanavartika, the great treatise on epistemology and logic taught by Dharmakirti. And by that time you'll be so confused that you'll be about ready to keel over. And some of you might have a problem, like Yeshila might want to get up to debate, but he's too big and fat to get up to debate, so he might have a problem there too.
I didn't say negative, but I said powerful.
It's powerful.
Largely powerful.
Yeah.
That's a respect, isn't it? Largely powerful chunk. You don't like the swearing. You don't like the cussing. And then when you fly the missions. Okay, maybe you can do it too. Oh yeah, that is good. Cannot say. Llama does it, I don't know. Kermenda, Kerchenda, and they are looking to the Shiki, but not you marry, Tubari, somebody, Tusam Jimari. Didn't go to the Llama, Areva. Chichen cannot do the not Chinam Kazana, Lama Marivas. Lama is getting that. Not was again, Gola Rajoy, the Rachel, the Dragon, Zankarpot and Napoda and Damadat, that another conference. They made a young open dialogue, Chunda. Yellow gets along as again. Then Monday Trinity, Monday Trinity, the current bacon balls is on one way, then there's a current over together some. My magic is wrong. What if you and then the Llama is going to cheat, Rostam gift on the Llama is in your marriage. Chichina chin Rostam the lady and cheat. Kovala Machalan, Kumichilla Machalan, then Madame Barua, then I go back in the Madame Barua. Same general Panama. Magic. Beyond that, they can be the Madame Cabinet, and cannot allow me but then, in the Calicut and the Lamin Nanja, and don't get the Chacharata. Chin sons of Mambo, you have do it. I mean, Lama. Not in the other, so the Cali cannot say, shall get Chimboji, that shall get Chimboji, Lapa Chimboji, my band, Gerum. Gerum touching that, shall get Chimboji. Gerum touching that. Papa and Jim Z, then Madame Pampada. Gerum said, no dogs, some take the work. I was no dogs. What shall get Chimboji? That's a deal, not. Papa and Jim, then some get somebody. So I think what in Yabba work. If you need what, if you need it. But the Lama didn't know the power. There's not be check and get it. Some give you jump up, some get it. Yara comes a song, Tanto comes at two. Women comes at good. They know the car. I think you're not a hard child. Nobody will do the Zoram chip. I don't say in that. Nyingma Bala, nobody other that. But Nyingma Baba, Jerem the Zoram. Get on it. Zonju get it. Keep it. What are the people? Mamma money to get. I think you did that. Tell the job of a chair. That's a song they did. So get on it. It's all along. New wind, a rock song set. New wind.
Inner wind.
New wind. Center of my heart. Rasons, the Indian yes. That's something, you win it in the Lama, the Buddha's given in the Chung Chung in the Mare, Repaying war. Yen announced a year, Domadi, Ginger Sani Machi, the son. Sanjay Zombo Sanjay Trong me by the Zombo Master. Or Pura the Sinjin, the Trong me by the number, Sinjin, the number Maji. The Machi. Jelly twin magic, the part, no war. Then you have the Sanjay Tanjaka. Danit. So to send you more, get there. Then Jason Sungar. The Lama didn't mind Lama, they were the Jason. The corner chip. Hammer was against no. In certain of that. The Gyatrul knew when the Jacob Corner Lama, Sanjay Tanjaka. One with dead. Give Tona, Corner, Renage, you are from my Europe. You are from
Gyatrul.
What he learned somebody. Some just don't know one can get Lama to do. Wow, but they don't come on here, Sanjay, to me, Sanjay, you should have taken the real. He comes out that Tajin, younger than Operation G, then I saw the main group. Make it how big back. Well, what did the Gurubas say? Chone Lama, Chone Yadam, Chone Encanto. Then the Chone Lama said the Lama Gizamo said was a con. Chone Yadam said the Yamantaka was a con. Chone Encanto said the Stimated from starts of Chone Lama, Chone Yadam, Chone Chusku said that. Should then go. I don't mind. I didn't think it's somebody already. Study the children to Ngöndro in more or less to just some like that. That's all. How close to me? Then I had to better put it. How do you read the course? You might have a Sarah Magins, you might have cut off wines. Cut off the car, top the cutter, you know. What happened? Guys who told me toxic. The day, he did it. He didn't look a Lama. I think I don't do this year, the Lama in jail chat that. Tamani is on day. Sunday again, a cover to Miss Sosa, to that game. Sunday cover chimney on that party they called you. Who goes again at that, then the Chinkava to miss that. Chimandra, the Sergeant, injury, and that. But to miss my traumatic Lama Timber. Sergeant, Tonaka, Sandia, countless to Sandia in the television. The children about anything. The ignorance of the Kanko. Control of the chip. Control and then control. T. Congo song with Gariba. Mexico, Mariba. Shisha Pinchak. Or Shisha Pinchak. Shisha Pinchak City. Not Katamata. What I need some yard. What the Tomba didn't understand. I said, that's on my children. What didn't let the Inchiton get us there? They did the Bayan. Inchiton and do it. They did that. Didn't the cousin somewhere?
Caricore, Joja?
Some year. Shibasha. Somebody. The other time,
No.
I'm a jealous of the control. Some report the Sonia. What the Gerald Inchitor Gerard and my idea in these ways, they have to tell them that copy the Ramada Chigmata. Then it turned out to test it. Then on some step down Ramada, Gilu commercial, something like a mayor, something like a mayor, something like a mayor. It is the standard target. Llama kawa 먼저 되는 바이킹 보트 정렬이 llama керама 되던 Llama 쫓아대 카통서만 해서 아빠들에다 개노들에 돼. 방달 던지 llama 쫓아대 되는 다리게 되는 거지. 뇽이네라니까. 뇽이 그래서 뇽게는 내라서 뇽이 다때 계산나 연 컨트 독체 받을 때 야, 그래서 이거야. 뇽이 다때 그러러 같이 뇽게는 지기 때문에 뇽이 다그래서 뇽게 담았는데 이거는 그냥 시기가 딱 지내게 연된 상태니까 이거 뭐 신기하게 아주 좀 유익적 내 시켜라는 게 무슨 되네. Wallace, 뇽이 소설 봐. 걔는 저 상계를 따봐요. 저 나는 그 상계를 따봐요. 저기였나? 대대대 뭐냐? 상계를 따봐야서 상계 나만 근데 상계 때 나는 뭐 나랑 좀 있더니 나만 때래. 그냥 그 상계 가운데 여러 상계 대신 그냥 뭐 되는 거야. 네. 곡세 저는 민경을 바라와. 대신 그냥 바라와 영내 잡대 되잖아 저러와. 바라와 영내 잡대 때 너가 센 사고도 맞아. 대신 바라와 영내 잡. 난 바라와 대신 그냥 바라와 llama 대신 바라와 상계 대신 바라와 영내 잡잖아. llama 바라와 영내 잡잖아. 멋이나. 다가 llama도 멋이던데 결혼할 때래. 결혼할 때래. 결혼도 타도 할 때래. 점수 송식은 타도 할 때래. 근데 저는 방에 싸움을 경하에 있으니까 나를 웃다. 이제 갈래 망보지 저 남자 성질 맥혀봐라. 할리스에다 마시나 따라서 엑서사이즈를 배워. 인도를 남아서 인도가. 당선되네. New Age는 뭐보다 내가 나보다 뭐야? 엑서사이즈. 신나? 성질 맥혀봐라. 자주를 따라리가. 어머님들 그래 주고 세는. 마시나? 따라서. 신은 나를 바기 못 가르래. 자동세기 뭐 다리기 때는 쉽게 들려. 네, llama래. 바디는 저런데 연가 나한테 싸우는데 나한테 척척대는 거죠. 여러분께 겨. 착각해 얘기하는 세계도 뭔가 자성다. 사람도 멤버 나한테 척척대는 거죠. 척척대는 게 따르는 탁내는 데 척척대. 근데 얼마나 따르는 척척. 에마네 척척대 가르쳐도 그냥 뭐 척척대. 내 척척대 돌려서 이제 제가 봐. 어떤 척척대. 대중들 때문에 좀 약보다 맛이나 깔래 쳐버려. 결혼하면 가정이 특별히 있는 결혼 데려와서 직접 수업가래. 성직 쌤도 뭐하대 성직 제기했어요. 뭐하대 약보다 맛이나 야 깔래 쳐버려. 성직 쌤도 그래. 애신이 그래. 어다 근데 정치하다 하지 강제 이런 말은 숙제 없는데 특파이가 같이서 이제 고통 생각하는 마사를 어떻게 그래서 나 원다 때문에 어때 llama 말체 나가서 단데 llama 같이 싶어 그래서 와이는 잡세 되는 그다음에 이제 척척은 털가라 비전 드라마다 연구도 봐. 비전들 마시나 하루도 가려라 나면서 nhưng thấy như con trùng đồ về là cái tự vision bảo trọng hơn được đúng không bảo trọng nhung được để sử dụng như cái cho để sử dụng cho con nhung được là bảo trọng ý nó là làm chuyện xong ý bảo trọng làm chuyện đó bảo có nó là trong bài đó mà làm chuyện đó ý cái rằng nó cho chơi cái mà được không ai là bây giờ mình tới đây nó bắt đầu tan đi thế xong rồi nó hóa ra cái gì ya là chuyện xong đi thế 근데 돌아가라 때 나와 시세는 나 너네 주제 아무 뭐야 사태 또 되는 게 또 조금 버지야 돼. 그 다음 제 에센스는 다리부터 마마다. 마마다 뒤충충 마다마다 내가 따르는 거. 애다가 밤이나 애다 청청 그래도 점점 많이 마마 다 짠이가 사람들 집단 gemba에 있는 거를 진입한 gemba에 있는 거 정말 그게 저런 새끼 때문에 이놈 벌겼다고 지금 했대. 근데 관계에서 적절해와 적절. 첩토 종주 첩쳤다. 돌가니까 종주. 종주게 아니들이 들 그리고만 말해. 나는 그렇게 종주게 말. 여러분들 도움이니까 옆으로 종주게 되는 거. 얘는 해봐야겠다. 하고 종료 때 마땅히 내 하색 때 이제 스톤바지를 쳐서 하드 스택 스톤바지 이러면 그렇게 들어서 근데 그런 멋있어 그런 얘네 너네 자도 종주 배디야 얘네 저게 전부 다 마침 그 종주 배디 차처다 탐가를 종주 얘네래 얘도 종주 얘네래 스나 또 종주 얘네래 스나와 스톤바지 종주 얘네래 아양도 이시 아양도 이시 얘네래 내가 내 이시 최고의 때문에 보니까 그거 보니 아리 이시 바바 이시아 기다다 아리 이시를 자는 게 된다 그냥 Gyatrul Rinpoche. Nó đã tính tới sự lên này cả. Sĩ dạy thì dễ sĩ bà thì đó lắm mà cho đi sĩ xong này dễ sĩ đấy. Có những cái mình đó chỉ sĩ cho cái này. Có những cái bà đó là trần đó lắm những cái này đó sinh chân. Có chế tài chân thì ta phải rằng là đi sĩ thì lắm mà जे तो करे उससे रंग रंग कर सांगे तक पापा में आता है चेहरे से आता है कौन ये कौन लामा ये दम खानो जो सब ये मैंने बात है जब ये मांगो तो दुआ तो थाम चल को मोह देते है ये थाम हमें जो कर देंगे को मोह देते है तो मशीन में तेरी माता लगता है कल कब मांगो देते हैं तेरे कैप्चर में मांगो तो चिया तक का करोगे ना 이제 말은 괜히 나다고 참 맛있는 나다고 그래. 명하다고 그래. 시간? 괜히 거기는 적어도 봐.
So, when I've commented on the Hinayana, the Mahayana, even the practices of hearing and of thinking, all of these, and then eventually of meditation, when I say that each of these is the Llama, the Hinayana is the Llama, the Mahayana is the Llama, hearing, thinking is the Llama, you may wonder, how is that? That doesn't sound right. That doesn't make any sense. Maybe so. In terms of outer and inner Vajrayana, maybe it's not the Llama. But if we think of lamas just as being external, then we can get caught up in the externals of people with certain kind of hair and wearing different kinds of white robes or multicolored robes in Tibet, and some of them would have kids, they'd have women, they'd have booze and so forth. And so there are all these outer manifestations. Some of them may be gelong, some may be a gelong, fully ordained monk, or Gyatso novice. The real ones in the olden days even had, they had begging bowls. I mean, they came with a whole monastic ideal. But the real nature of the Lama is not simply these outer displays or manifestations. The excellent qualities, the Yönden, these are the true Lamas. These are not outer things. These are inner qualities. And so, in the Guru Yoga, then there are different levels of the Guru Yoga, outer, inner, and secret. There's the Mahamudra. By the way, that doesn't mean big hand. And so all of these. So what is the real nature of the Lama? It is the inner qualities, and this is demonstrated through Guru Yoga, the actual Mahamudra. That is the Lama, the stage of generation, right through to the Mahamudra, and the resultant realization from Mahamudra of the Taparabjan, or the vast expanse of purity, or pure vast expanse, and Nyingma, the very evenness, the very quality of evenness of the whole of samsara and nirvana, or Tejin, the suchness. All of this, these deepest truths of Mahamudra and so forth, that is the greatest Lama. That is the greatest Lama. And when one realizes that, then one dwells in a Buddha field, in a pure land. And one sees all appearances as the body of the Buddha, all sounds as the speech of the Buddha, all mental events as the Dhammakaya, or mind of the Buddha. So there are many practices of the Dzogchen, stage of completion. There are many practices, for example, taught in the Nyingma tradition. And there are stages of generation, stage of completion, the union of those two. All of these are the Lama. These practices, and the realizations from them, those are the true Lama. There's someone as Dzogchen Rinpoche commented once that he had found his primary Lama, and he found a primary Lama in the depths of his own heart. You might be wondering, what did he find? Some kind of a virus, a bacteria, some kind of a bug? But what he found in the depths of his heart was the very essence of Rigpa, of pristine awareness itself. So apart from that, there are no countless Buddhas externally that can purify us. From outside, they can't purify us. This Rigpa, this pristine awareness, is the nature of all of the Buddhas. And Gyatrul Rinpoche was saying, I have met that Rigpa. And so in saying so, he said, I have met the nature of all of the Buddhas. So he said, this is my root Lama, this is my primary Lama. Now, this is the outer display. This is how he is manifesting Gyatrul Rinpoche. But who was he in essence? What was the lineage of his incarnations? This traces back to a previous incarnation in which he gave Vajrayana empowerment or initiation to 1,000 Buddhas. So this was the deeper nature. If you'd like kind of like more commentary on that, more detail on that, Yeshe is well versed in this. He can fill you in a lot on that point. So he was saying that in the depths of in the depths of his heart, he said, there I saw my guru. He said, like a big bug. In the Galupa tradition, in the Galupa Guru Yoga, they say, Kyunyi Lama, Kyutin Yeren Gyukin Kando, Jukyonte. You are the Lama, you are the Lama, you are the Yid. So you are the Lama. Then when we recite that, this is in the Lama Chupa, the puja to the Guru. When people recite that, when they think, oh, you are the Lama, they may think of somebody with a yellow cap. And then when they say, you are the Yidam, they may be thinking of Yamantaka with great big horns and wrathful display. And then when they say, you are the Dakini, they make some really beautiful chick. And then when they think of you are the Dhammapala, then they may be thinking of, never mind. So then we trivialize all of these, we encapsulate them, whereas actually all of these are the nature of the Lama. So when you're taking refuge, then you're taking refuge in the highest. So we go back to the basic teachings, the Hinayana teachings, and we learned, we hear, if you've heard so often, that the Buddha practiced prior to his enlightenment, practiced the Dharma for 3 countless eons. What was he doing? What was he doing during that time? Was he just sitting in his room quietly offering mandalas for an eon or so? No, for those countless eons, he was serving countless Buddhas. He was serving as his lamas, countless Buddhas. So there's a detailed description of this and the nature of the omniscience of the Buddha in a 3-volume set of teachings of writings by Ngöndro Wallace. And so these are authentic teachings. This is, and so if you'd really like to know this, then you should study such texts as this, and not just be reading people, oh, my idea that they've copied out of other books. There are great treatises in the Gelugpa tradition, the Sakya, the Gagyut, and so forth. But in the midst of all of these great teachings, the real refuge, the ultimate refuge, is to be found in the heart, wherein lies this pristine awareness imbued with all the qualities of the Buddha. So by having faith in the Buddha, then we have faith in the best of all lamas, as the Gelugpas say, but of course all traditions say, of the Tathagarbha, the Buddha nature, that this Buddha nature, or Tathagarbha, pervades all sentient beings. Well, if that being the case, the Buddha nature, of course, does permeates all sentient beings, then it must be equally true that the Llama permeates or pervades all sentient beings, because the Llama is nothing other than the Tathagarbha, which is nothing other than pristine awareness. And so that Llama who pervades all sentient beings, that is the stage of generation. That is the stage of completion. That is the union of the stages of completion, generation, and completion. When engaging in stage of completion practices such as the Tsalung practices, and the different breathing exercises and so forth, one may find, oh, this is so difficult. In one way, these are just exercises. And if we take them just as exercises, breathing exercises, physical exercises, if you just take them as techniques, then techniques like those, something like those, can be found in Hinduism. There are New Age practitioners that are doing various types of exercises. If you don't really understand the meaning, then it's really not much more than what they are doing. But if you really do understand what is the significance, what's the real meaning of these Tsalung practices pertaining to the channels and the winds of the vital energies, then this is great. But if you don't really know the meaning, you're just going through the external motions, then there's a Tibetan word, degat. Then it's nothing special. No big deal. So what is the nature of the Tsalung? What is the nature of these practices? Well, it boils down to, on the deepest level, it boils down to the tikle. And the tikle is the nature of Dhammakaya. That, once again, that's the Llama. That's the Llama. Rela. So the three kayas, the Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, Dhammakaya, then are all encapsulated, or all of the same nature as the Tsalung tikle, as the channels, the winds, and the vital essences, the bindus, or tikle. Some people say, oh, but what I really want to practice, what I'm really drawn is texture. And Rinpoche kind of played with that like tekis and taksha, like, well, it's not blood taking, like taklane or something. Kansha. In any case, the texture, there's the texture, there's the karasa, the texture, the breakthrough. There's the turkel, the direct crossing over. But in order for these practices to really be effective in leading to realization, then one must first understand nature of emptiness, shunyata. One must understand, have some experience of Dzogchen, state of completion. One must understand what is the meaning of Teijin Yiki Dingenzen, the samadhi of suchness, of nature, of ultimate nature of reality itself. And as various traditions such as the Gelugpa so strongly emphasize, in order for that to have, for all of this to have its full efficacy, then it's very difficult if you not achieve bodhicitta. So all of these are all together. And all of this is the Llama. All of that is the Llama. This is the Buddha nature that pervades all sentient beings. In the Turkyal practice, the practice of the direct crossing over, there's visions of all different kinds. Various types of visions will arise. But if one doesn't have that context, doesn't have the depth of understanding, and understanding the context of the theory of the practice itself, but just starts to have a bunch of visions. Well, having visions as such is no big deal. We've been having visions all day long. We have visions throughout the course of the day. These visions, these appearances that arise to the mind, these are arising just by the power of our earlier mental imprints, or habitual propensities, the bhakta. And these in turn are driven by or aroused by the two types of obscurations, afflictive and cognitive obscurations. But these are not pure vision. This is just ordinary vision, just more samsara. Whereas when you engage in authentic Dzogchen practice, then this gives rise to the four visions, and and the essence of all of those, these authentic visions, the essence of all those visions is the Llama. So the Llama is something very nuclear, something very essential, kind of like an atom bomb. But don't think it like an atom, like being something really small. The two knowledges, right implicit in the nature of the Llama, are the two types of knowledge: the knowledge of the extensivity of reality, phenomenological knowledge, as well as ontological knowledge, knowing reality as it is. And so, then what is the nature of the Llama? The nature of the Llama is the union of the Turkel and the Tekchur, the direct crossing over and the breakthrough. But that union is not slapping two things together, that we're kind of wandering and then and kind of jamming that together. It's not like that. It is a primordial unity of the Tekchur and the Turkel. Likewise, we speak of the union of the state of generation and completion. This too is not just putting two things together. The union of these two is primordial. Likewise, in Dzogchen itself, it's primordial, the wisdom there. The union is primordial union. Likewise, when we speak of the Xiaozuo, Zhangzhou Zongzhu, the union of Mahamudra and Dzogchen, this is also not just putting two traditions together. The union of these two is primordial. We move on, the duality, the so-called duality of Nangdong, appearances and emptiness, and then the union of appearances and emptiness, it's primordial union. Primordial union. And then finally, the union of the Dhammadhatu, the absolute space of phenomenon, and Yeshe, primordial wisdom, the union of those two is primordial. It's always been there. It's not something two things put together. So when you understand this, then you understand that this Yeshe, primordial wisdom, primordial consciousness, this is the Llama. There's not the Yeshe behind me. He's a Yeshe wandering around in the bardo. True Yeshe, this is the Llama. This is the primordial wisdom. And so if we have faith, then we actually meet the Llama. We meet the authentic Llama of pristine awareness. And in meeting this Llama of pristine awareness, of Rigpa, then we encounter Amitabha. We encounter Genrezi, Avalokiteshvara. We encounter the Llama, the Yidam, the Ngöndro. We encounter the essential nature, the one taste of samsara and nirvana. But if we don't meet that, if we don't meet this essential nature, if we don't meet the true Llama, then you become just like me, kind of crazy. Whereas if you do know the true Llama, then you can really do pretty much of anything.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's so embarrassing that one word, and say, like me, and I put myself in the Lama's place. Okay. Then say, don't get people more than the Lama, the Shabnimbo. Lama Sandi, Lama Sandi, Lama Gendra, Lama Chu. Lama Sandi, Lama Chu, Lama Gendra. And Lama to Machina, Paritan, think well Lama, the Karin, young every Lama to what a Tarbore, Lama handsome a day, state speakers a day, or pretties a day, Lama Chipos a day, Lama Bodhi was a day, or Lama Yapad. Then what? Lama handsome. Samgile, Kuzula, Chandra was Sinchusan, Bishop Gyatrul, and some Patia. Lama, see the speaker, Sonia Yama picture. Lama kind, smart, they Chitawa, the Chinipa, Kimason. It doesn't do what I'm not a to not the clear music. 그래서 결혼 좀 재생지 Llama 보이나 뭐 있나 그래 그 말이 개발은 나라서 아니 상태 사람들 신주성이나 그게 야채 인간이고 그게 된다니까 항상 된다 스피커는 스피킹은 스피킹 성향이 야막 규칙된단 말이에요 그래서 들어가 집까지 얘기 그렇게 되지 그래서 많이 신경을 쓰고 다만 뛰어나는 나는 피해증상성들 개발, 증발, 정보 that's just something something best 다 많이 나 개발은 뭐야 개발은 알은 와는 게 민망하다 프로페서 라체는 개발을 증발해야 돼. 개발은 도대체 증발 말하는 거 같지 증발 증발되는데 이는 매대게 되게 증발 말이다 그걸 묻잖아 증발이 개발이 가버라고 하셨는데 사는 게 손들을 붙여서 개발을 단 개전 정보 이렇게 상식 그심 이렇게 자정 미신게 내려서 먹고 받은 게 야, 단지는 라만 개발 많이 릭데라 정식 그심은 아니야 증바 많이 릭데라 그래서 가까이 말은 야간에 열을 개전 성성변 야간 무치래 증바다 우선보다 옛날로 무치래 담바 그런 게 심지어도 담바도 그냥 something 인천이가 걸리대와 바로 실한데야 다 명한 대전이 경우도 하고 실한데야 따로 걸리대와 그것은 되는지였습니다. 라바 동작은 뭐예요? 그것은 걸리니까. 그때는 단때는 뭔가 열어야 나 쪽으로 example 같은 거 단데. 옛날에는 라마 상징의 점지가 라운드 내게 그래서 대지긴 트러블 데마 직직 손나야 데마 데마 양도만 용들 거 말아 상계 말아 봐 되게 뭐 백텐 잡을 때 보고 맞는 게 자전 머신 게 칩 느낌 게 되게 다 어디다 따서 가다 아동생 나라서 따야 기초 나와 공부도가 세 통도 인가 있는 것도 있잖아 라마 강이야 지금 때는 소소 따가야 보자 다리도 좀 정말로 라운드를 시작이야 말하는 소소 그렇지는 그냥 라마도 괜찮대니 라마스견 건가는 searching magic 사성하는 진짜 searching 필요해. 답하자. 그때 지금 이렇게 관심이든 감성이. 그래서 라마 번째 라마 뉴베니샤는 거. 이리처럼지. 맞아. 라마 매단 직사료가 라마가 so complicated. 이래. 라마 매 personages 이거 말이지 something like that.
So we take refuge in the Llama as the three jewels, the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. But in terms of finding a Lama in the world, seeking one out, as I've said so many times, it's important to check, to examine carefully before we establish such a relationship. and check in the proper ways, and that is, one shouldn't be adopt or establish such a relationship with the teacher as one's Lama just on the basis of his, let's say, being handsome or very good with words or very pretty or rich or clever or fat. None of these qualities are sufficient. If you are looking for handsomeness, then look to the Buddha Shakyamuni with his 32 signs and 80 symbols of enlightenment. There's nothing more beautiful than that, more attractive than the body replete with all these signs and symbols of enlightenment. If you're looking for somebody articulate, then don't look beyond the speech of the Buddha, endowed with the 60 facets of enlightened speech. And if you're looking for someone who's smart, then again, don't look anywhere else other than a Buddha who's imbued with the two types of wisdom, of the whole range, extensive range of reality and reality as it is, this ontological insight. And so, whether one's Lama is a man or a woman, the central Lama should be ideally endowed with three types of qualities, called in Tibetan Ketsu Zambo, Kepa, Zumba, Zambo. Kepa is, and such a person, imbued with all these three qualities of wisdom, of, let's say, nobility or dignity, and then Zambo, goodness. Such a Lama is the best of Lamas. Now, taking those one by one, in terms of the first one, having a person having great knowledge, erudition, this kind of thing. Well, there are many people like that. There are many Lamas who have a lot of learning, and then there are many just scholars, professors who have studied a lot and learned a lot. So they're pretty dime a dozen. But then when you come to the second quality, Zumbo, I'm not quite sure what the best translation. I've heard it for many, many years, but having quality of dignity and nobility, kind of lofty, in terms of one's demeanor, one's very, very, very presence. If you like examples of those, well, the Khenpos are here. It's not just the fact that they are celibate, that's not enough, but there's a certain nobility of demeanor. And this is the second quality of Zumbo. And finally, Zambo simply means goodness. And especially those who are endowed with bodhicitta, then they're certainly endowed with a very deep sense of goodness. But at the very least, you'll want to find a Lama who doesn't lie or deceive, even those who are not Lamas. They may be Zambo, they may be good, insofar as they really have an integrity. They're not devious. So if we should try to look for a Lama that is imbued with all these three qualities of great knowledge, erudition, as well as nobility of demeanor, as well as sheer goodness, His Holiness the Dalai Lama embodies all three of these qualities, especially in terms of the latter two, the qualities of nobility and goodness. Gyapche Patrul Rinpoche, His Holiness Patrul Rinpoche, is a wonderful example, especially exhibiting these latter two traits. As we watch his life and how he strives so hard, almost working himself to death, working to preserve the Dharma, to be of service to sentient beings. These are great examples. These are two examples that I draw, but they are certainly wonderful examples. The Lama who is imbued with bodhicitta, then naturally speaks truth. But in terms of the Lamas that we engage in, if we can just find those that they speak the truth, not in the sense that they're infallible, every single word that ever comes from the mouth is always true. They may not actually be Buddhas, but at least that they're not deceiving. We need such Lamas who have integrity, who are honest, and speak the truth as well as they can. And so we need to be checking out, we need to investigate carefully the teachers with whom we will establish such a relationship, on the one hand. On the other hand, we're living in very fast-paced times, and people feel they don't have much time. Life is short. And so we may feel we don't have the leisure to check out the Lamas, as Lamas might be ideal. In that case, we do as well as we can. And we find the best Lamas that we possibly can. And once we've established a relationship with them, then we place our faith in them. And it's important that that faith be unwavering. And that once that relationship is established, then we just stop the whole inclination of finding faults in the Lama. Now it's too late for that. Leave that behind. Now that you've established a relationship with the Lama, now devote yourself to practice. Practice the hearing, thinking, meditation, and seek the true Lama. Seek the true Lama. the nature of your own pristine awareness. Now, hearing all of this talk about lamas, 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 you may think, oh gosh, this is awfully complicated. This sounds like a whole can of worms here. Maybe I should just do can of worms and nyotasapo. Can of worms and a nyotasapo. Nyotasapo. They're very complicated, the can of worms. So maybe it'd be better just to forget the whole thing. I'll just achieve enlightenment without having to go there and all that lama business. But then you have to remember there don't seem to be any accounts of people who've achieved Buddhahood without lamas.
Oh yeah. 그래서 라마는 저ችን 정말 경계 다니는 다쳤대다는 거기를 숨기네. 다니는 라마네 같은 어떤 음식이나 제 정식 그 사마다 그발도 라마 부르겠습니다. 라마 예스.
정식 세말.
정식 사.
정식 사.
정식 하다가 샤님 다가 된 거그래서 라마 된 거그래서 내일 그돈 영다가 와서 봐도 대박 뭐 그래 대상적으로 대박 뭐 그래서 제가 라마 담가면 뭐 그래서 대박 가르쳐 라마 담가면 내가 tanto lama shanla la pesa lama shanla res 제가 만 같은 소버스 feedback 그래서 지금 lama giftin 내가 오늘 탐색이 소스 셰파고 뭐 Llama, mushi inglês, que era normalmente mushi inglês. Dentro do som, que era o chitem, lama lá, muki merna, não bem, cada dois. Chapada, são lá do que tem lam tamchet na, lama kona, lá tem lama kona, carchivain. Lama nanjal naram chitanda gomdi gombayam. Git de git tamchane sumyares. Git de tamchane sumyares. Not my idea. Say what? Take out the Kieran Doran Gomba Tamchat Lekam. Lama made it and Lama Kieran Katanga Tamchale. Tapakar Banga Gagri Lama Banga Chains. Or come to cover Shiva and have them Gagri or have them touching Mongo, the tongue to pass Mongo. Lama Kachitans of Mongo Chains. I can remember that. I tell about it. I also some idea about it. Lama the Bulgarian. Oh, Naranza comes on me, observing that me, me Lama.
Me Lama.
The brother Lama the Masakan took about a Masaki and then you are married. Me Lama to go over there. Then he got one you Lama, so said that me Lama, then Timangala, don't give Lama to mortar in Korea. I think much better than the chief little, to give it sunlight, go back to the person. They can't start the Kiran. Kiran Tadin, Zoram Tadin, Kiran Tadin, not an Nishulan, three Korea. What the idea? Thompson Narrator, it's also one you got Ferum chicken, Zoram chicken, Mamba chicken, one. Jigiar. One matter night to check into. Military one matter, church, long net, tilt net, one made and parts of children to share. Children want some men, so. Never got it done in Mataki, and I also made a change of that, so meet the kid, and never got it done. Run it in a run it, nothing will give up. No matter. Government, daughter. What did that not also one trip some vacation, but that he taught them one of just in the side. So one. What is Samaya the Masu? What is it in a Samaya? So you call it over. I don't care. I don't want to that business, Too dangerous or too difficult. Now, I don't need initiation. I don't need it. Mama, dogging around, checking around. One of the matter, Pasamaya again. Tani can get material than money to me. Materials were and so gentlemen. It's not your daughter, not the something, Maya, to Brooklyn. Bogan using the Norad, Ravna. And I using the Norad current. Somebody comes to 50. So, Chipchina, to do the Sojak. You got Chichon, the tradition job, one in it, chase, in the Mala to turn the sofa, young Sella, perishing. You need that, then. In Yapon is some that, in it, dancing they didn't do there. Just on you got that. I imagine. The mother, Terra, you married like a one race, she's singing. Kakas are trying, and Kakas are. I don't think Zata much in that thing. Calico. In Talimarans, one, the Llama thing, I don't say she will do some part of that. The watching by five hardly do something. One top says something. Llama thing, I don't say. Come somebody country, then buy in chill it on. One chill. I rest somebody, the Maran, then chill were to buy somebody to buy. The chill was in as a chill were, not a question. Check in there. Somebody don't but somebody. Check in. Time Lama Majenda day. Lama like Joseph or carry that. Some get chill could do somebody at Tamara, the potential transition. Children getting cancer like I saw the carrot. The time made I saw them do the good. I hear the one says, do the thing. I don't cut in. Now, you got someone they got a dangers. They did the thing. Zalda, I don't Cherokee.
So throughout the Buddhist teachings in the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and so forth, it is said that the Lama isn't necessary, and it's said that, it's said in this particular text, that until we achieve enlightenment, until we achieve the state of Buddhahood, we need to devote ourselves to the Lama. And until we've fathomed the ultimate nature of existence, the Neluk, the ultimate mode of existence, we need to continue devoting ourselves to hearing, that is, learning the teachings, listening, and specifically listening to the Nyingma, or the quintessential practical instructions. It also says in the text here that all the joys and happiness we experience are coming as a result of the blessings of the Lama. And this being the case, that it's very important to devote ourselves to repaying the kindness of the Lama. It continues in the text that the Lama is the source of all mundane and super-mundane siddhis. This needs to be recognized. And even if one had knowledge, extraordinary erudition, and knowledge of all of the three baskets of the teachings, the Vinaya, the Sutra, the Abhidhamma, if one had vast knowledge but did not have reverence for one's Lama, then there would be no benefit in all of that knowledge. This is generally true for the whole of Buddha Dharma, but it is particularly true for Vajrayana, in which there's no way to overestimate the importance of the Lama, that the relationship to the Lama is of premier importance. And this Guru Yoga, the text continues to say that this practice of Guru Yoga is something taught in all the tantras, so it's not simply the opinion or the particular view of the author. And so in the midst of the stage of practices of stage of generation, of completion, of the union of the two, among all these different types of meditation practices, the meditation on the Llama is really the best. There is no higher source of blessing, and that is in terms of the kindness that we receive, the kindness we receive from the Llama is greater than the kindness we receive from 100,000 Yidams or deities apart from that. And so the essence is that until we achieve the state of Buddhahood, then we need to devote ourselves to lamas. We actually need human lamas, not just the essential lama like Rigpa in the depths of the heart, but we actually need to devote ourselves to human spiritual mentors or lamas. And having established that relationship with a human lama, then that lama will enable us, will lead us to identifying the actual nature of the lama within, in terms of Rigpa. But in order to get there, we need to engage in the practices of hearing, thinking, meditation. And then pursuing that, then we can engage in the practice of stage of generation, stage of completion. But for those practices, as is very widely known, we need to receive tantric empowerment. Now some people may teach Dzogchen or other forms of Vajrayana without being part of any lineage, without feeling just kind of circumventing or going around the whole issue of having themselves received empowerment, oral transmission, oral commentary from qualified Lama. They just do it all on their own. They make it up as they go and then present themselves as Dzogchen teachers. Such people, while ostensibly kind of teaching Dharma, looking like they're practicing Dharma, in fact they're simply accumulating causes for spending eons of time in the Vajra hell, from which it will be extremely difficult ever to escape. And so in the midst of any type of Vajrayana practice, it's important, of course, to keep the samayas, tantric pledges. But some may say, well, I just don't care about all that stuff. This is somebody else's business. All this issue of Vajrayana and lamas and samayas and initiations and all of this sounds like it's too difficult. Somebody else's problem. Too dangerous, too difficult. And so I think I'll skip that whole mess and not get any initiations at all. And I'll just do this on my own. I'll just go out and do the practices on my own. Well, from one perspective, the practice of Vajrayana can be viewed as a wish-fulfilling jewel. It can fulfill all of our wishes, just like a wish-fulfilling jewel, but actually fulfill all of our deepest wishes. So on the one hand, the practice of Vajrayana can be like a wish-fulfilling jewel, but on the other hand, it can be like a poisonous snake, depending on our approach to it. So it's important that we practice according to the tradition, practice properly. And this means receiving tantric empowerment, the Wang, oral commentary, the oral transmission, oral commentary, devote ourselves to practice. By doing all of this, by practicing properly, then the samayas are kept within that. And so when we receive empowerment, then we agree in the presence of the Lama to devote ourselves to practice. But then later on, if we just turn our backs upon it, giving up or forgetting about it, in a way we can say, in a way it looks like, well, we've just been dishonest to just one person, just the Lama who is bestowing the empowerment. That's just explicitly. But implicitly, by lying to one Lama, we're lying to and deceiving the entire lineage. And the result of that can only, again, be rebirth or in miserable states of existence. So in this whole enterprise, it's very important for us to be, there is danger here. This is very dangerous to practice incorrectly. And so for all of these reasons, it's important to be careful.
Okay. 근데 성미야 다 청소수 보면은 되게 신경이 열려서 단지 통과도 되나 Mamboya, Tibetan. What talks of my unit, and somebody might have given them state by all Llama, Gyatrul Rinpoche carry my Toronto, or Sangi carry my carry my woman. I didn't think Llama woman. Then they counsel that coming government of Llama. Then what wrong is she from a Takkan there, God has also supported the Llama and the nature of she. Can you that? The young love them by the Japan. What the young love them by the I don't think. Child Tarawa to Parachi involved. Child Tarawa son yellow involved by Chile involved by the Gendala involved. Llama involved, Kandola Yadama involved, Secretary involved. So, cerebral, Manala. Then, example doesn't. I don't think Margaret. Chambers to Chidia to Margaret for Taiwan, machine and Margaret. Chance I see them with a long muscle. How count them stand to go. I she gets it in Chavada, lay out in Chavada. For contracted to do the visit came, then another chance Chavada being honest and people on it. Did it do the panel government and do it? Fierce chance. Did it so much chance, did it to a chance. Bangla Sapara and for some to you and come here. Chance and chance object in a Michikirman, Tommy, Sunday Tommy, Lama. Some sort of get a bit of Tommy that could be the other. That and to come indeed. Those of them is a long yard. Cannot Tiger Taji, Llama 7 branches, what's on giving you. That's my parents studied, I was a definition of sea. Nyingma by the answer. But it should be having the other Ngöndro and Llama Professor Secretary and David that you have to go as a
Namsadomo. Namsadomo. But choose to took the jacket on the dingmetal. In the second number, choose to get a gamma shipshin amato, papi. Digital. Go ahead. Notice, Alan needs to go, but not right now, and so I'm happy to stay. And Rinpoche said maybe we'll bring this to a close, but for people who would like to stay for the vows of refuge, I'm happy to stay and to continue interpreting.
What are we saying? The song I gave about the Llama to go there. Llama, the song is something there. Llama, I knew that so much. Tibetan Buddhist, some I give about the Llama made the Naranjas, Sanjay Naranjas, and the killing of the Dubai. Kajika, Mom said, I'm Buddha, I'm conducting this with a bullshit. But what of the ship here? I took something, not just some to say, not there is nothing. Good luck later. Chop down some road, one the sun gives the able to consider matter what you don't better the challenge of Llama. Thank you. China Llama, he on that. Sanjay on that. Sanjay with good as a king, he on the chip, one word. One sentence. China Llama she. Sanjay was somebody on that chip and on that. One sentence in a Karina, Pishina. Llama Shim, Llama Tim. Second Timber, me Llama Timber. Me, what? Girl, some took some little some to the other Tanakari. The relation, it's in relation. Chubun Gyatrul system and get choose it, found out. She the Llama is she. The same girl, they gave the Llama. Chabat now that to practice choya. One to told and I'm cutting it, be long cutting it. The make a long cutting, that's a taron. You want to come Llama calling it, hey, maybe I don't. He needed me or she needed me. I don't think they needed you. I don't go to I don't sort of go with some of them. Sanji Penner, again, I'm going to go back to you, but sorry, Sanji la Natsu go with it. Natsu man, the current Galeka Meduba, then the Peshara Kumariwa. Sanjera Natsu go with my. That's what the song did. Chila Natsu Gogre, Chila Natsu Gogre, Natsura Chico. Gendana Natsu Gogre, Gendana Natsu Gogomare. Taban Chinja Gomar to the country. Nature of the Bodam, Marwan they read matter 6, 7 they read that. I can't check it. Natsu Gogomare. Conjunction Natsu Llama, Yedam, Lama, Karaman, that's a youth, Senator Goldman. That's what I'm going Taraton gift, some yellow gold, from Saturday, that's all about. Then a Zandon, don't Chuku, the Saturday, Zandon, the good. Zandon, the good, Matsu Dandala. What is Dandala, you put up there some people around the Setan, I take. College after Tibetan college. We give the men answer. Men the Tibetan. You got that. They give me the tips and tips and book. The Charama, Marama. Nature driven someday and then retreat it. They got Chigara. 1 week I get to retreat, we went to retreat. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, 2 months. A big deal to do. The sort of program, I thought of 1 second, I don't talk about it. Some get the children get in touch. I thought you don't attack it. I don't know you about the alcohol. Some get it, matter some get it. Nadala Kakio. Kobala Prosit. Aram to Kobala. Some Gyatrul. Then said, Llama complaining, some idea that she had complaining. I don't know what you got. Moso that was it. Moso data. Index in Llama. Some gay gagere. Llama gagere. For him, for her. And practice. Learning. Well, yeah, that was all. Sub-centered, which made by the sub-cherishing, so that to come at the same thing. The watching the same thing, but natural go better than not also narrow mind is sub-centered right there. Not everything about it. Together, not also. What and they need that more than minded side. I don't so young, so the massa by the some idea the name. That's a pango, chill pango. Patrul Rinpoche, our purpose and her purpose. Pango, chill chico. Mother, pango, panga, in that pango and the pango to shoot in that. and that's so. So when you suck, you're doing it. The same thing go there. The young, the bad, the bagger, and the moment the bad, the shit, the bad. Chip toss of it, the chip body. Chip the bad young. Then the December is not also. In the Llama, the Tagano, the name Hawaii, and I don't say, Tari, Tombo to some young battle. The opposite of Llama was some other. Burning was on the name. So, Massa, the Bama, Gibbs. I sure I did it. She didn't pour Tombo the younger. Tombo last minute, sure I did the part and I don't say that. Well, then, Miss Chichi sugar, Ama sugar, Abba sugar, the sugar, then father watches it. So, I'm a chicken at Tapayana comes better. You know, but Tapa let Tapa culture. What a color. Don't want to carry it in the Tapayan cans again. What is a given that? In a Suzora box, she can find out the sugar. I don't know why you're not. He bought something. Was and I can done there, not the painted. Mala pay opposite. What? He did it around to practice, he did it concentrated. Young so longer than you avoided. I looked at it. Then I don't sit on that. You have got a new teacher. Have the more sort of. Give out the young Ngöndro, the Yarki Ray, around the that doesn't matter. I think Tom and naturally not to substandard at the substitution. But the Rambans are substandard children, then Janat in the sort of sauce. Then a man was in the man that some of them to that. She did a young man. I don't know, so a sucker, divide the that some of them took our and working so hard, bullshit. Want to do that. But I'm doing Tavam Kai, some of them. In my own singe, come to the China, who's on to Tim Jonah, Carriage. They shall mark what church out them. I don't know so sorry. I don't know to buy the money. Come to Lingas and Carry somebody up China. Macam ni, naram kau langsung aktif saja. Bank. Tapi sebenarnya jangan cijab government itu kacau betul. Orang sana itu cuma, punya sosok sih, sosok nada tu lama tu. They don't need it like me.
So, Papa.
Tibetans.
Things are good.
Some but they do not do that more than me. Also, Malin Kibat, children. She did some machine, come by. Malakan. Then I pay, not to call a pen to he can pay us. Sure. Someone said, he wants your money, but I don't think he can pay you. Guys. What the noise is doing?
So as I said many times before, it's important to recognize the Llama, to know what the nature of the Llama is. And there are various ways in terms of practicing Guru Yoga to visualize the Llama. For example, when we visualize Dzogchen, the field of merit, there are various types of visualizations there. One is to visualize the whole assembly, like a village, or the whole assembly of the gurus. And this may include all the lineages with different levels of different, kind of lineages. So that's one possibility. And there's a wide variety of visualizations and practices in that regard. Or another whole mode of practicing the Guru Yoga is just focusing on the kind of the one jewel. For example, focusing just on a single Lama, such as Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava. So you'll see these various types of visualizations are depicted in the various tankas pertaining to Guru Yoga. In terms of the visualization of the whole Dzogchen, or field of merit, then often Samattabhadra, primordial Buddha is on the crown, the very top. And then there are all these different tiers or levels of lamas following the lineages. There's also, but then one may focus simply on a single lama like Guru Rinpoche or Padmasambhava. And eventually you may take refuge just in the lama in your heart, which doesn't. What's really the point of prostration? I mean, who gets benefit from that? What's the point of that? I mean, do the Buddhas really need somebody to prostrate to? Does the Dharma get benefit by having people prostrate, or the Sangha, or the Sangha, or the Lama, the Ngöndro, the Dhammapala, or Dzogchen? Do any of these, are they getting some kind of a high off of this? Do they get some benefit by people prostrating to them? That's not it. The whole point of prostration is to counteract pride. And pride seems to be a very prevalent quality here, especially in the West, very, very possible, very, very widespread. And so in order to counteract that, then we prostrate, we offer homage with our body, speech, and mind. And the object of our prostrations is not just an image, but it's the countless Buddhas and Lamas. So full description of this, for example, the seven limb devotion, all of this is described in great detail in this book, Words of My Perfect Teacher, so this should be read. And looking into the future, once again, the Lama is important until we achieve Buddhahood, and once we have achieved Buddhahood, then we are the Lama. Once you have achieved Buddhahood, then you are the Lama. But until then, even though this Buddha nature, or this pristine awareness is already within, this is actually our deepest nature already, we don't accept that. And so since we're not accepting this deepest nature of ourselves, then we need to be taking refuge. On the other hand, there are those who have no problem at all thinking of themselves as Buddhas. They walk around telling everybody, I'm enlightened, or I'm a Dakini. This is called bullshit. Oh, no, that's actually BS, which I stood for Bodhisattva here, sorry. They may think I'm a Buddha, or I'm a Dakini, or I'm a Bodhisattva, I'm Chenrezi. So these people who just basically just have never slipped out of their ordinary sense of identity, and then maintaining ordinary sense of identity, think, oh, not only am I this, but I'm also Dakini, I'm Chenrezi, and so forth. Or that one is like Buddhahood manifesting from the three poisons. And Rinpoche's one counsel of that is good luck. Good luck. And so we need to devote ourselves to the Lama. And even by understanding one sentence or one phrase, one word, then by understanding one word of Dharma, then we know the Lama. And we do need, for the time being, to devote ourselves to human Lamas. Now there are these 84,000 branches of Dharma. Knowing those is knowing the Lama. Especially in terms of Vajrayana, such a primary emphasis on the Lama in that context, and recognizing that all the understanding, all the blessings of Vajrayana, all stem from the kindness of the Lama. This Lama, again, needs to be a human being Lama. It has to be a human Lama for the time being. We don't have access to Lamas in the formless realm, some kind of a formless realm. But now we may think, oh, for these Lamas, the human Lamas, well, they need me. We may think, oh, there's that Lama, he probably needs me. But this is a mistaken notion. The Lamas don't need us, we need them. So likewise, do you really think the Buddha needs you? Do you think the Buddha now is out of work? Is not drawing a paycheck? No, not likely. It's just the opposite. The Buddhas don't need us, we need the Buddhas. Likewise, the Dhamma doesn't need us, we need the Dhamma. The Sangha, the Sangha doesn't need us, we need the Sangha. These enlightened beings, they've already achieved the perfection of their own self-interest, Dhammakaya. And whatever they display in terms of for this interest of others, for the benefit of others, namely the Rupakaya, or all the form emanations of the Buddha, all of that is for the sake of sentient beings. So this we learn about through hearing, through thinking. But it's important also not to overinflate our practice, thinking, oh, I mean, one week of practice, 2 weeks of retreat, 3 weeks of retreat, or even 1 or 2 months. It's easy for people to think, oh, they made such an enormous commitment, 1 month, 2 months, big deal. We need to know what our own interest is. What is our own welfare? Wherein lies our own welfare? And what we need is liberation from samsara. So that's what we need to be focused on, and leave all of our complaints behind. Enough of that. There's no more time for complaints. The notion that we find some Lama and they go, okay, I'll practice for the sake of that Lama. That's really the point of my practice. I'm going to practice to please that Lama. This is to practice like a real bozo. We're practice for your own sake. These are the 4 thoughts that turn the mind. Why do you practice those? For the sake of your Lama? You practice those to transform your own mind. As you're meditating on the precious human life of freedom and opportunity, do that for your own self. Likewise, when you meditate on impermanence, take refuge, cultivate bodhicitta. These are not for the sake of somebody else. These are, for example, the cultivation of bodhicitta is to overcome your own self-centered or self-cherishing attitude, to overcome this narrow-mindedness that is so prevalent. Likewise, when you're offering mandala, do you think somebody really needs this mandala you're offering? They're getting a kick out of giving them a mandala. We cultivate the mandala, we offer the mandala because we're beggars. We're beggars, we're the worst kind of beggars, roaming around blindly in samsara. We're not like the beggar Patrul Rinpoche, who was mistaken for such. He took on the guise of being a poor person. But we're the real beggars. And so what we need to do is accumulate the 2 types of accumulations, the 2 collections of merit and knowledge. And this can be done by offering the mandala. So we do that for our own sake. Likewise, when we practice Vajrasattva meditation, not for the sake of Vajrasattva. He's rich already. He's rich in having overcome the 2 types of obscurations. So, but we practice the purificatory meditation of Vajrasattva for our own sake. The same is true for our practice of Guru Yoga. It's not to do something good for the Guru, it's to do something good for ourselves. Likewise with the practice of Poa. There's some people that think they can get a shortcut. They can skip Dharma for the whole life, put it off until the end, and then do a really snappy Poa practice. And then they'll be out of there and get all the benefits. But practicing Poa without having devoted oneself to accumulating merit and purifying obscurations, putting it off to the last minute, lots of luck. There's some people who come to the Lamas and say, oh, my mother is dying, my father is dying, please practice Poa. To get benefit from Poa, you have to have faith. How many people really in this culture really have faith? Without faith, it's difficult to get any benefit from Poa practice. If you do have faith, if you have devoted yourself to accumulating merit, purifying obscurations, then you develop these kind of habitual propensities. You develop kind of a spiritual momentum behind your practice, and then that really gives rise to benefit. And the Poa can be very effective. Now I'm saying this, I'm not saying that there's no benefit, there's no possible blessing in a Lama bestowing Poa on a person who doesn't have a lifetime of practice behind them. I'm not saying that. There are different mysterious ways in which blessing can be received. There's blessing just by hearing. There's blessing by touching. There's blessing by hearing. Blessing, and then it's called liberation by hearing, liberation by touch, liberation by seeing. There are references to that. So I'm not refuting that. But generally speaking, without faith, it's difficult for any of these to be truly a benefit to us. So we know there are 3 types of motivation. There's wholesome, there's unwholesome, virtuous, non-virtuous, and then neutral motivation. And among the 3 types of motivation, what we really need is this positive, very wholesome, virtuous motivation. But again, why cultivate good motivation? What's the point of that? It's not for the sake of others. We need a positive motivation for ourselves. Likewise, in terms of concentration, really focusing on the practice itself. Why do we do that? We need to do that for our own sake. And at the end of the practice, what's the point of dedication? Is it really for the sake of others? What we really need to do is overcome our own natural self-centeredness, our spontaneous, habitual self-centeredness. And for that reason, then we engage in dedication of merit for our own sake. So I myself, I have spent time devoting myself to accumulation of merit, purifying obstacles. By so doing, then we accumulate merit by means of virtuous actions. So anybody else, this is how we accumulate merit, through virtuous activity. On the other hand, if we just accumulate negative qualities, negative karma, then we are just developing a bigger bank account for being able to spend a long vacation in the lower realms. And so, in terms of knowledge of Dharma, there are many Tibetans actually already have good knowledge of Dharma in the past and the present. So many Tibetans already have had a lot of exposure to Dharma. So they don't need to learn from me. Many of them know Dharma better than I do. But in the West, there's not much knowledge of Dharma. And so I have devoted a good deal of time to sharing understanding of Dharma here in the West. But actually, I have benefited by teaching. I've gotten benefit from that. Now, when you hear that, you may think, so you have gotten benefit. You should be paying us. Sure. Dream on.
What did he say? I'm not going to tell you.
Dream on.
Huh?
He said, dream on.
3 months.
Dream on.
They brought to my job. I'm to check. Okay. Anyway, I'm around to take temple and temple go to the house. Temple find the cover. Temple find. Temple finding a bunch of some like capsule. Now, go on. Let's. The foundation or gate, it is a gate. Go there. Since said that the control from the capsule, how to summon Gamba see the capsule. Oh, Muggy Chole around the Shepherd Dance. It's on the parts of Magilla, the source, some control from the capsule. Magilla, the death of town, what Carrero Sunday was on the stage of the Sunday. And another one of the rest Sunday there. Magilla the town around the dome door. Carrera, around some square. Around some Magilla give up magic. Sunday the song with Jesus Mountain. Natural steps and again, just some card of gains, Maropache. Did San gave the bar magic, Givachi, the bar punch of the bar of magic, give up my nothing. San gave a thousand share, the nose. But there is some of your marathon, not on a chicken ship in the day, thought they were Carve number is a ton and number ready on that. Number is good. What I'm going to Tar Rikshana, Kara Giva Yara competitive. And you don't got time to shit the devil. Yandan Tanjim Johnny Tipping better. And next person, Karchuk Giharnam give Trongjum. Mamba Yishin in Japan. Never around to Adam, the Sumanam, the Tanjik, and that sort of strong. Around to more Doba on them using the Doba and Jukio. Bunch of Jisam. Donna. Then I'm wondering a kid, the land, the opposite China, Patrick Charapam.
Karishapa? Bacha own.
Patrick Charapam. Oh, conjunction with no one after na, conjunction after na. Oh, modern, the self. Triangle, the conjunction.
The Ankisono.
Conjunction, and then it's a song, it's a magic.
Imagine,
You don't get.
Jena.
The 10 didn't say Chima Tamjala. And this song you get to get in the island part. The color is in some you go home talking about the version stage by stage. That is a ganga, the Gonzala Mijaron and Mboya and the Chanotama. I am telling you about the song that you really cheer. Yanitona Injitona, Spanish Tone, French Tone, absolutely. 괜히 자랑스러운 skills બધું નવા છે સર Gyatrul Rinpoche itu sanji benar Rinpoche cuma yang dan cuma sanji macam apa saja kita terus cuma cekik tandu kan ya jangan si injil di nambah cekik macam itu jangan si cekik yang ada apa tengok jadi tu jangan ngarang sepong tetap और तेरा ने पहचान तो Gyatrul मिस्टर जर Gyatrul ये दाल ये तो से गुना Gyatrul ये माइन का क्या बन नॉलोक Gyatrul बड़ा ना नॉलोक माइन चलो नजाशम डाल के तो चलो कोने के तेरा नजाशम तो नहीं अपन चुसो था तो बाबा ने मारा ना समझे से बाबा ने मारा सोआ ना के दांत से मारा न्यारा को जदान को कितने बार ना रहते और ब्रिज समान थोड़ा तो गने चलना चाहिए Refuge that's a samratan.
So we move now to the taking of refuge. And the first step in doing so is to reflect, to learn about, and then reflect upon the benefits of taking refuge in the three jewels. So the first benefit is that taking refuge is the basis or the gateway for all of Dharma. Secondly, by taking refuge, we sow the seeds for liberation. We sow a seed for liberation. By taking refuge and carrying through with a refuge, then we distance ourselves from non-virtue. If this doesn't happen, some people take refuge and then their non-virtues don't decrease. What's wrong with that? It's not that the Dharma is at fault, it's because we haven't been following the teachings themselves. The Buddha said, avoid non-virtue. And we say, oh yeah, and then we don't do it. So this is really the worst fault, where we put on the outer display of following the Buddha, but the following of the Buddha is only in the mouth. And so when we actually take refuge and follow through with it, then we distance ourselves from non-virtue. And the next benefit is that virtues increase. Taking refuge acts as the basis or foundation for all vows. It is a source for the growth of all good qualities. Temporarily, the taking of refuge, in terms of the short term, leads to rebirth as a human or a deva. So in this sense, it's really like a wish-fulfilling jewel, because it can fulfill all of our desires within this world. On the other hand, if we take refuge and we don't carry through with it, we don't follow the vows of refuge or the teachings of the Buddha, then just the opposite happens, and obstacles will rain down upon us. If we don't forget, having taken refuge in the three jewels, if we don't forget them or just turn our back on them, but maintain the mindfulness of the three jewels, and we find joy in this lifetime and in the future, and the joy of that is the joy of proceeding along the path to Buddhahood. So this is something we follow stage by stage. All these benefits of taking refuge are described very clearly in this book. So I strongly encourage you to read, to think about what you read. And this book has been well translated into English. It's been translated into French, to Chinese, to Spanish. So whatever language you speak, you have no excuse. It's here. And this is something not just to fool around with, just kind of treat as a plaything, or play around with. It's about something to be taken seriously. Now, I'm giving this emphasis, I'm not insisting, oh, you have to become Buddhist. This is your choice. Any more than I'm insisting, oh, you should become monks. You don't have to become monks. To take on this outer display of being a monk, that's one thing. But most important is the inner. Anybody can put on robes. But the most important thing is the inner transformation, the inner practice, the inner devotion to Dharma. Putting on robes itself, that's easy. I put on robes myself. I'm not a monk. I don't have monastic vows. I don't even have the Bodhisattva vows or the Tantric precepts. I just have a lot of causes for going to Vajrayana. So you should think about this. If you're interested in liberation, then you should ponder this well.
Pieces. Then as we change things again now. Yeah, we read. Then now. Sanjira Tabaya. Sanji could have shut them. Chungchongziga that Sanji Conjok Dishisha. Should not chip your name. Take my budget. Chukonjok Dishi. What are the ending? Naza, several and I did. That's a matter. Get no control to the sugar. Johnson. The Tonga the Tinisumia. The matter, and answer to Maria. Sunday, Kenda Yanata, Sanjeta Yana, Mama Yana, Denny Pora Josayana, Dora Machida, Tomba by your doctor chief, showing the long leg. Tomba Rombo.
Yeah.
She just has a Tonga, the Tomba Rombo doctor.
Nale, the Rinpoche choose to.
Tomba Rombo,
Chi Rinpoche, Chi Tung Tung. I mix it. Rinpoche, Tung Tung.
I don't think you need to repeat it.
Rinpoche, Hakomaso.
You don't need to jump over. Changing your year. What is that? To talk.
To top.
To talk. The bottom is talk.
I like all sign of having city.
Oh, pretending that I'm going to jump over the statue or the Llama or that can be.
Notice.
Don't jump over the refuge object.
Notice. Oh, no, Hakosana. Oh, yeah.
Like Alan, he thinks that I have a long leg. I have, accomplished that. What is that? Accomplished that. But I see that. Well, that might be the Gerante. Jumping matches about a good in and a song in and I am Namzai and some can tell me that when Joseph is netting nothing. I don't see. Chances are coming, steps on there that I'm at. Have no change the matter. Come back some strong the matter. Why? Gerant choose you did that. Both marathon, Kuptera, Llama, and a person for 10 years, and the chili with the one. And the two machine of the Kayama. What she did the Regina. Or number money, cheesy. Ah, she had controls. Samaya over them. Then you got in a Gerant to jump the doma, the Kanga, jump the doma to be a cat on that one. He did it. Mine is a thing man who's in the park near some of the 30 years on the dollar chicken, crashed and matched them. One just some chicken, the Shiraya for the controls of Llama, just some given children, or number with Diana, and on Sunday. But just in Tabaya, Ponja, then Charles. Charles could give out the son of their son, you make your body, Tapas up to them. What a night to do, hitting their head on the floor so wide. Tapas up to me. Yeah, long there, Lomson. Ramazan was bags and get what to do. Lomson telephone the son of them. Charles said, the mind now, super commanding there. Same the Tapas of the Johnson. The budget is controls of the church, mine and their controls of the continuing around the controls of the turn Martin night. That's a return here for a lumps and lumps.
So once you take in refuge, if you have faith, then if you even see a piece of a robe of a monk or a nun, an ordained person, then you will treat that with reverence. Likewise with refuge, this is actually some of the vows of refuge. If you see even a fragment of a statue or some image of the Buddha, then you treat that as an object of refuge. And even a single word of Dharma, receive that as a refuge as well. Moreover, when you see, again, coming back to the issue of the robe, if you see even whether it's the yellow robe or the red robe, a fragment of either, just a little strand or a little fragment, you just treat that as representative of the Sangha, and you treat it with reverence. So by so doing, these are following some of the vows of taking refuge. Also, you don't step over when you see some representation of the objects of refuge, like be it a Dharma book or a statue or what have you. You don't just step over it, even if you have very long legs. You don't step over it, which is a sign of disrespect. But treat it with respect always. and don't just kind of ignore it or act as if it's not even there. Some people do that. Of course, here in the West especially, some people will treat these very casually, but they do so not necessarily out of disrespect, but just because they don't know any better. But for those of us who do, then these are some of the samais, these are the pledges or vows that go along with taking refuge. I suspect all of you have already received refuge, so you should know this already. And then as you're falling asleep, it's a very good practice, as before you fall asleep, to offer 3 prostrations. If you do so with faith, there's very great merit in that. If you offer prostrations without any faith, then it's basically just a head banging. Likewise, when you wake up, instead of just waking up and immediately go, wow, talking and getting on the telephone and so forth, as soon as you wake up, to offer 3 prostrations, a very good way to start the morning. Even if your body is not up to it, if your body is disabled, and you can't physically offer the 3 prostrations, or you can still do it with your mind, and this is most important.
Okay. Rope to another rope.
Back to the rope, notice.
Rope say that. Gyatrul Rinpoche kone dane trina sangye de konso chananda matanda sangye de namza konde. Naranso ordinary namza dan jagu mare. Nila chanina tale sangye namza ten ten de chimani ke ten. Sangye param jibi amaro. Param the kanda, param the namza, and the chikatsan. Param the ten. Zanga shanta. The karan, param the karabo, dekan travel than dancing tea than Parava Ashman the karam, Shakespeare. He took look on the Damareda. The Samsara remember Lecture. The Sangye Taya, Sangye Tantin. Then Maranza Shantabina, Zanina, Kanga, the Tetu, Suzuka, for the Zama Zaidan, Zama, Corze Avera, Tabaja, Corze, think, Drubat, jump to the Sunday, another 10. Why? Kari and Magiva Consoles, Bella Tini than in Tabaja, sort of Terina, Drubat to the Sunday, Janak. Today I was in an air, today connected. Tabaya maybe. But the last curiosity, the legend, Master will give Sakurada. Ngöndro sounded the Namza Timothy. Then it cannot Taba Namza, Tabaya, Sugar Namja, Abaya, Tabaya. Zanshan, Sangi Namza Chats, and as a opposite tea than at me, trying on the chances at Chita. And Chipare, Yapore. Tabayana. Some of the Garots, some get tension. Why is Guru Rinpoche is on it? Or Garots, Sudanas, Chipchi, Nyingma, that. Yedam the Ram Ramul Yaron, failure. The time of the son, Guru Rinpoche Tanshik, Jedoin, the Jaya Gachet. Sign. But Guru Rinpoche Tanya, Guru Rinpoche, Jeb Mandoya Gachet, Tantin. What did it?
Dematation.
Tamba, Charan Tantin, Charan, you don't have the Johnny to tangle. Oh, that is 10 over the Karamadu, just give me a some.
You need to remember to take That's what that was what I needed to hear.
Oh, it's Sanjay Namzad, Telezan, Tantin, Sanjay Tantin. Maran's Chipchi, Nyingma, and Guru Rinpoche talked out there, not going on. The music, the other ordinary music, Mari. Guru Rinpoche, the Sanjay, the jump up there. Chetan. The Korean Guru, concert Tanaga, what is Banda? That's a lot. So the ticket and around the channel. What? The other music, the channel, the Tatama, the Kanrak. The Ganga, Zinkam, Chinut injected, Chinut, injected in it, Mata Parasa, Lord, Madame so the San de Mata Paras. Tapish Kama, Jerry Tapish coming center. Oh, Madame Devachan Vision coming. Some of Pari in Garden in the Balam in Church Bazagro. Garden in Circuit Kitchen coming. Captured Kitchen coming. Circuit in Saga Tony Child. A garden is on the body to silver. That high Maria garden. Captured Kitchen, captured. Well, I teach it and I don't stop that. Tapish come get there, Matapani, Jayach. Tapish come to him, Tapish Zariakum Bongara, Java, Javil Zariakum temple, Jebel Zariakum, one Zariakum, or Trapoda, Dana, something in Jabba, but I don't see children can come out and the Matapines, the Jayach. What are taking there? Joy Yananda, Geva Yananda, Wang Yananda, Chapo Yananda, Hapo Yananda, Moyananda, coming the times. I don't see. Mata was no other than the time Mata Papa is no other Ariga, Saint What the Tabar Geometry, the teacher. But the imagine the teacher should not get Jenkam there, Tapachi, Nanti, Nanga Jaria come there, Tapachi. Nanga Senje de Tapachi. Tapa Ramjam Chasohan. What teacher the then indeed Yanda, Church, and the Tokanka relation, the Paranto Yonder Ready on and the Karadabat. The museum get the Timothy de Maranda. The Yonder Ready, Gene, Ready on the teacher of the Mamba, the Campa, the China. One of them. Cannot say that. Something. If I cannot keep with the Tita. Lee. So I go make him marking ring and quality the quality. One of the she will cut them more than anybody. Let's begin. When that relation the very are. Teach it and match it, then they come in the Rambo down. Sit on that. Manams at Sumagu on that, Charams on that. Cannot the day or the chips of a young than college and cannot stand up. So something. Children. So Zanda security don't have one. Therefore, what is maybe Buddhism on that? Maybe. Buddhism on the warrior, run the thunder. That is made the target. So, everybody on the run the thunder and Chandara came to do up. You know, Tabachi was sent to the Mama of Jade and the Apollo. It is Jammer Jerome the Domagina. One Joseph can try again. Domason never Joseph can pay around on. Sent you there, Ponjo. That's what kind of a dog. Not so less. Jamen, touching, not children, come to Doma, Panset Garrison, around sort of him day. The son of Donadan, so for so. That's not my chair, when they're on that, trigger my jet.
So I want to return to the issue of the robes. When you see the robes of a novice monk or a fully ordained monk, ordained person, the real significance here is that these are in remembrance of the robes of the Buddha himself. So these are not ordinary robes, they're not ordinary garments, but these are representations of the garb of the Buddha himself, representations actually of the Buddha. And so this is not like the Shakespeare pageants they hold up in Ashland where they're putting all these costumes on. Those are just remembering samsara, remembering old days in samsara. But the robes of an ordained monk, these are to recall the quality, recall the Buddha himself. By recalling that, then this purifies negative karma, purifies obscurations, and what is bringing about that purification are the blessings of the Buddha. So if one has faith, then one may wear such robes oneself. I wear them. Then one may wear. I wear them. If one faith, then this is certainly possible. But if one doesn't have faith, one puts on the robes of a monk just to be fooling around, just to be fooling around, kind of playing around, and then that just leads to lower rebirth. And so the robes of the ordained sangha, these can be treated like objects of homage, just like going into a shrine room and making homage, offering prostrations and so forth. All of this, the point of all of this is to recall the Buddha, to be ever mindful of the Buddha. Just like the many dharma that have been revealed over the many centuries since the time of Gyatrul Rinpoche himself, these are to remind us, to bring us back to Gyatrul Rinpoche, to his enlightenment. And likewise, the various types of rituals, the regular rituals that we engage in on the 10th and the 25th of the days, the 10th and 25th days of the lunar months, these rituals with the various music, the liturgy, the chanting, and all of this is to bring us back to mindfulness of the Buddha, mindfulness of the Gyatrul Rinpoche himself. What is the benefit of all that? It's blessings. We receive the blessings. So the music that is played, the liturgies that are chanted, is not just ordinary music. This is in order to bring about a transformation. That is, what we're living in is, on the one hand, it's kind of looks like an impure world. The world is produced by karma. But by such practices, then we transform the impure world into a pure realm, be it Dzogchen, be it Kachu, be it Ganden. So we're actually transforming the appearances of the impure world into pure world. Likewise, the visualization of the palace, the mandala, and the palace within the mandala of the four kinds of peaceful, expansive, powerful, and ferocious. These visualizations, the generation of these four types of palace, these are all to purify our ordinary abode into a pure abode. Likewise, the generation of the deities and adopting the identity of the deities, be they peaceful or wrathful, male or female, all of this is to purify, to bring about pure vision of the world around us and of our presence within it. So all of this is for the sake of purifying the vision of sentient beings, our home, and leading eventually to this taparabjam, this full, the pure expanse. So the various representations that we see, for example, in this temple here, in this Dharma center, these are not just museum pieces. They're not just kind of artifacts or relics. But each of these is replete, is full of meaning. So if you'd like to understand the full symbolic meaning of each of the representations here, the tankas, the statues, and so forth, then you can ask the Khenpo. Or, above all, you can ask the artist, Sunama himself. As an artist, as a creator of these, then he, above all, really knows very well the meaning of all of these, and he can explain it to you. So the purpose of all of this is for you, for people who come to the center. It's for your benefit. The fact that we have these gatherings, the regular gatherings, Dharma gatherings, teachings gatherings, this is all for your benefit. It's not for the sake of Buddhism. You may think, oh, this is helping Buddhism. It's not helping Buddhism, it's helping you. This is what it's all for. Likewise, the practice of accumulating merit, purifying obscurations, this is for your sake. The dedication of merit is for your sake. Certainly it's good to dedicate merit to the sake of all sentient beings. But it's really for your sake. Likewise, taking refuge, keeping vows, cultivating bodhicitta, following Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana, keeping samayas. All of this is for your sake. So think about this and don't ignore it.
Poncho Sama, Jackson Robbins, the Ronism, with the sons of Nimo Mata, Poncho Sandy, Poncho Chip, Poncho Gaming, Poncho Jackson Robbins. When they were by Terence, Margaret, Terence Candy, Tapsa Soma, Mara and Robbins. Then you know, the Tapachim was same thing with the Simpson time, Jack the Tonda, Terence Candy, same thing with the Kyoto Tabashiba. Net there on to be doing something. And then the Pachim was same thing on Robert something. Patch the red from the Chitala Martin Martin Pachos. Chitala. Around the chair, and the Mahabani take me about when I didn't come out of the toilet. They take the only apartment around the church. Don't go any about somebody then around the church and Julie chip. And someday with the church. Song did that. Ming the getting or I must be good fight, especially.
So for those of you, if there are any of you who have not received refuge in the past, you may do so now. And so anyone who's, again, fresh to this, would like to receive take refuge for the first time, then you can step up, come over to Alan, and you will receive a refuge name. This will be written down for you. For the rest of you who have already received refuge, you're very welcome to receive it again. You can take refuge as many times as you like, likewise taking Bodhicitta vows or Bodhisattva vows, likewise receiving empowerments. There's no limit to the number of times you can take these. Once you've taken these vows, though, then it's very important to keep them. And so in taking the vows of refuge, then we develop this firm resolve: from now until my enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha refuge, the Dharma refuge, the Sangha refuge. Just as the Buddhists of the past followed this path, so do I follow in their footsteps. Likewise, if you wish to take refuge, the Mahayana refuge, then you cultivate this by way of bodhicitta. And similarly, you bring to mind, just as the Buddhists of the past have cultivated such Mahayana refuge, so just as you have, so shall I follow in your footsteps. So in this way, you take Mahayana refuge. Now the time has gone by, I got carried away a little bit, but now we'll wrap this up. If you'd like a further elaboration or more elaborate teachings on taking a refuge, Kempo can certainly explain this to your heart's content. Also, this is described in great detail in books. But for right now, I will ask you, for anybody who wishes to participate, to repeat 3 times after me the vows of refuge. And then if there's anyone here who is taking refuge for the first time, I'll give you your name, your Dharma name. We'll dedicate merit, and then goodbye.
Okay.